Blessing Okafor stood in the grand ballroom of the Eco Pearl Hotel in Lagos, wearing a midnight blue gown that shimmered under the crystal chandeliers. Important people from all over Nigeria filled the room, their voices creating a low hum of wealth and power. Across the crowded space she saw them. Her ex-husband David and her former best friend Sandra stood frozen by the bar, staring at her with wide eyes and pale faces. Blessing smiled and walked straight toward them, her heels clicking on the marble floor. Just 3 months ago, these two people had destroyed her life when she had nothing. Now everything had changed. But how did Blessing go from a broken, grieving woman to this powerful person standing among Nigeria's elite? Hello family, welcome back. Please hit subscribe and give this video a thumbs up, it really supports our channel. Don't forget to share with your friends and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new story. And please tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Now sit back, relax and enjoy the story. 6 months earlier. Rain poured down on the windows of Divine Mercy Hospital in Port Harcourt. Each drop reminded Blessing of the storm that had taken over her life. She sat in the cold waiting room, her hands squeezed together so tight her knuckles turned white. The bright hospital lights buzzed overhead, making everything look harsh and scary. Her mother, Rose Okafor, lay in a room 2 doors down, breathing through a machine. The cancer had come so fast. 3 months from the day doctors found it to this terrible moment. Blessing's phone buzzed in her lap. She looked at the screen. It was her husband, David. The message said, "Still at the hospital? Going out with friends? Don't wait up." Blessing stared at the words. Her throat felt tight. "No, how is she? No, do you need me?" Just those cold words, as if her mother wasn't dying 20 feet away. She didn't reply. She just turned the phone over and sat in silence. Across from her sat Sandra, her best friend since they met at University of Lagos. Sandra had come an hour ago with coffee and tissues, looking worried and caring. "She's strong, Blessing," Sandra said, holding her hand. "Your mum is a fighter. She'll pull through this." Blessing nodded but couldn't speak. She wanted to believe it. But the doctors had been clear. Hours, maybe 1 day at most. A nurse came to the door. Her face looked soft but sad. "Mrs. Okafor, you can go in now." Blessing stood up. Her legs felt weak and unsteady. Sandra started to stand too, but Blessing shook her head. "I need to do this alone," Blessing whispered. Sandra nodded with understanding. "I'll be right here waiting for you." Blessing walked down the long hospital hallway. Each step felt heavier than the last. When she pushed open the door, the beeping of machines became louder. Her mother lay beneath white sheets. Tubes ran from her arms. Her chest moved up and down slowly with help from the breathing machine. Blessing pulled a chair close and took her mother's hand. It felt cold, much too cold. "Mama," she whispered, her voice shaking. "I'm here with you." Rose's eyes opened just a little bit. Her lips tried to move, struggling to form words around the breathing tube. Blessing leaned closer to hear. "Safety deposit box," her mother whispered, the words barely heard. "First Bank of Nigeria. Box 447. Keys in my jewelry box. Top drawer. Hidden space." Blessing's forehead wrinkled with confusion. "Mama, don't worry about that now. Just rest, please." Rose's weak grip suddenly became stronger, surprising Blessing. "Promise me. You go. You open it. Don't tell anyone. Not David. Not Sandra. No one." The fear and urgency in her mother's voice sent a chill down Blessing's back. "I promise, Mama. I promise I'll go." Rose's eyes softened. A small smile touched her dry lips. "My beautiful daughter. You are stronger than you know. Remember that. When the storm comes, you must stand tall." "Mama, please don't talk like that." "I love you, my child." Rose's voice faded away into breath. Then the machines began to scream. What secret was hidden in that safety deposit box that would change Blessing's life forever? Doctors and nurses rushed into the room, moving Blessing aside. She stood frozen against the wall as they worked on her mother. Their voices were sharp and urgent, calling out medical words she didn't understand. But deep in her heart, Blessing already knew. She could feel it. The way you feel a door closing in an empty house, final and complete. At 11:47 that night, Rose Okafor, age 58, was pronounced dead. Blessing stood outside the hospital in the pouring rain, staring at nothing. Sandra wrapped an arm around her shoulders and guided her toward the car. The whole world felt distant and blurry, like Blessing was watching her own life through dirty glass. When they arrived at Blessing's apartment in Port Harcourt, David was there. He lay sprawled on the couch with a bottle of beer in his hand. Basketball highlights played on the television. He looked up when they entered. "Oh, she's gone then?" Blessing nodded, unable to find words to speak. David took a long sip of his beer. "That's rough. Sorry, babe. That was all. No hug. No kind words. No comfort." Just those few words before his eyes went back to the television screen. Sandra shot him a look of pure disgust but said nothing. She took Blessing to the bedroom, helped her remove her coat, and sat with her on the bed. "Do you want me to stay tonight?" Sandra asked softly. Blessing shook her head. "I just need to sleep and forget this day." Sandra hesitated, then pulled her into a tight hug. "Call me if you need anything. I mean it, Blessing. Anything at all." After Sandra left, Blessing lay in the dark bedroom, staring at the ceiling. The apartment was silent except for the muffled sound of the television in the living room. She kept replaying her mother's last words over and over in her mind. Safety deposit box. Don't tell anyone. What could possibly be hidden there that was so important? The funeral happened on a gray Saturday morning at Victory Baptist Church in Port Harcourt. It was the same church where her mother had sung in the choir for 30 years. The wooden pews were filled with faces Blessing barely knew. Distant relatives from the village. Old co-workers. Neighbors who hadn't spoken to her mother in years but showed up anyway. Blessing sat in the front row, dressed in black, her face showing no emotion. David sat beside her, checking his phone every few minutes. On her other side, Sandra wiped tears with a tissue, her hand resting gently on Blessing's arm. The pastor spoke about Rose's kindness and devotion to her daughter. Blessing heard the words but they didn't reach her heart. She felt empty inside, like something important had been scraped out of her. After the service, people came up with sad words. "She was a wonderful woman. She's in a better place now. If you need anything, just let us know." Blessing nodded and thanked them. The words came out automatically, without thought or feeling. As the crowd became smaller, David leaned close to her. "I'm going to leave now. Got a work meeting I can't miss." She turned to him slowly, not believing what she heard. "A work meeting? Today?" He shrugged like it was nothing. "It's important, babe. I'll catch up with you later tonight." He kissed her forehead quickly, like checking off a task on a list, then walked out before she could say anything. Sandra watched him leave, her jaw tight with anger. That man is unbelievable. How can he be so heartless? Blessing said nothing. She was too tired to defend him. Too tired to feel anything at all. That night, Blessing sat alone in her childhood home. The small two-bedroom house in Remulla where she had grown up. The furniture was old but clean. The walls were covered with family photos from better times. Her mother's presence seemed to live in every corner. In the smell of the lavender air freshener. In the neatly folded blankets. In the gospel music CDs stacked beside the old player. Blessing walked slowly into her mother's bedroom. Each step felt heavy and sacred. The jewelry box sat on the dresser. It was a simple wooden box with a carved flower on the lid. She opened it carefully with shaking hands. Inside were a few pieces of jewelry. A pearl necklace. Some costume earrings. A silver bracelet that looked cheap. She ran her fingers along the bottom of the box, searching for something different. Then she felt it. A slight movement in the wood. She pressed down hard and a small hidden space popped open with a click. Inside was a single brass key. Blessing held it up to the light from the window. Her heart began beating faster. The key was small and old, with the number 447 stamped on it. She closed her fingers tightly around the cold metal and whispered into the silent room, "Okay, Mama? I'm listening now." What secret was her mother hiding that required such careful protection? The next morning, Blessing stood outside First Bank of Nigeria in the business district of Port Harcourt. The key felt heavy in her coat pocket like it was pulling her down. The building was old, made of red brick with tall white columns. It was the kind of place that had survived many years by refusing to change. Blessing walked inside. Her footsteps echoed across the shiny marble floor. The sound made her feel small and nervous. A woman at the front desk looked up with a polite smile. "Good morning, madam. How can I help you today?" Blessing pulled out the brass key with trembling fingers. "I need to access a safety deposit box. Number 447. The woman's smile became smaller. She looked at the key, then at Blessing's face. Something changed in her expression. "May I see some identification, please?" Blessing handed over her driver's license. The woman typed something into her computer. Her face changed from polite to confused, then to something that looked almost like alarm. "One moment, please." The woman stood up quickly and disappeared into a back office. Blessing waited, fear creeping up her spine like cold water. What was happening? A man in a gray suit came out. His face looked serious and important. "Miss Okafor?" "Yes, that's me," Blessing said nervously. "I'm Mr. Emmanuel Adewale, the branch manager. If you'll follow me, please." He led her down a narrow hallway, past rows and rows of safety deposit boxes built into the walls. He stopped at box 447. He inserted his key alongside hers and turned them both. The metal door opened with a heavy click. Inside was a single thick brown envelope. Mr. Adewale stepped back, his face carefully neutral. "Take all the time you need, Miss Okafor. When you're finished, just let me know." Blessing pulled the envelope out with shaking hands. It felt heavy, full of something important. She carried it to a small private room nearby. The room had only a table and a chair. She sat down and opened the envelope slowly, her heart pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. Inside were documents. Lots and lots of documents. Stock certificates with big numbers. Property deeds with addresses in different states. Bank statements showing amounts that didn't look real. At the bottom was a handwritten letter on cream-colored paper. Blessing unfolded it slowly, recognizing her mother's beautiful handwriting immediately. "My dearest Blessing," it began. "If you're reading this, I'm gone. And it's time you knew the truth about who I really was." Blessing's breath caught in her throat. Her hands started shaking as she read on. "I was not the woman you thought I was. I was not just a cafeteria worker at the hospital. Not just a choir singer. Not just a simple mother doing her best. I was all of those things, yes. But I was also much more. My real name was Rose Ashford before I became Rose Okafor. I came from wealth, Blessing. Old money. Generations of it. But I walked away from that life when I was 23 because I refused to marry the man my family chose for me." Blessing's eyes went wide. She read the words again, not believing them. "They disowned me completely. I built a new life from nothing. And I wanted you to know the value of hard work, humility, and independence. I never told you about my past because I didn't want that world to touch you or change you. But now, everything I walked away from, everything I built in secret over the years, it's all yours." Blessing's hands shook so badly she almost dropped the letter. She flipped through the documents again, her mind unable to process what she was seeing. Her mother owned stocks worth hundreds of millions of naira. She owned commercial buildings in Lagos, Abuja, and Port Harcourt. She had accounts in banks Blessing had never heard of. At the bottom of the stack was a summary document, typed and official-looking with a lawyer's stamp. Total estimated value of estate, 1.2 trillion Nigerian nairas. Blessing stared at the number until her vision went blurry. She read it again and again, but it still didn't make sense. Her mother. The woman who clipped coupons from newspapers. Who shopped at Balogun Market for cheap clothes. Who worked double shifts to pay for Blessing's university textbooks. That same woman had been worth over 1 trillion naira. And she had never said a single word about it. Blessing sat in that small room for over an hour, reading and rereading every document. The letter explained that everything had been placed in special trusts managed by a law firm in Lagos. "When you're ready," her mother had written, "contact the firm. They will help you understand everything. But Blessing, be very careful who you trust. Money changes people. It shows who they really are. Protect yourself. Protect your heart. And remember, you are my daughter. You are stronger than you know." Blessing folded the letter carefully and placed it back in the envelope with tears running down her face. She walked out of the room past Mr. Adewale, who watched her with new respect in his eyes. Outside, the world looked exactly the same. But everything had changed forever. Should Blessing tell David about the money, or keep her mother's warning close to her heart? Blessing drove home in a daze. The envelope sat on the passenger seat like a bomb that could explode at any moment. Every red light felt like it lasted forever. Every turn brought her closer to a decision she wasn't ready to make. When she pulled into the parking lot of her apartment building, she sat in the car for 10 minutes. She stared at the steering wheel, trying to organize the chaos in her mind. Her mother had been a secret billionaire. The woman who raised her in a small house. Who taught her to save every kobo. Who never wore jewelry that cost more than 5,000 naira. That same woman had been sitting on a fortune that could change the entire country. Blessing finally grabbed the envelope and walked inside. The apartment was empty again. David was gone with no note, no text message. She was used to it by now. She locked the bedroom door, spread all the documents across the bed, and began making phone calls. The law firm her mother mentioned was called Ashford & Partners, based in Victoria Island, Lagos. When Blessing called, she was transferred 3 times before reaching a senior partner named Mr. Richard Ashford. "Miss Okafor, he said warmly, his voice smooth and professional. "We've been expecting your call. First, let me offer my deepest condolences. Your mother was an extraordinary woman." "You knew her?" Blessing asked, surprised. "I did. She was my cousin, actually. When she left the family, most of them wrote her off completely. But I always admired her courage. She reached out to me years ago to set up the trusts for you." Blessing's head spun with confusion. "Cousin? My mother had family she never mentioned to me? It's a complicated story. Why don't you fly to Lagos? We can sit down properly, go through everything, and make sure you understand the next steps. I'll arrange first-class tickets for you whenever you're ready." Blessing hesitated. "I need a few days to think about all this." "Take all the time you need. But Miss Okafor, one piece of advice. Don't tell anyone about this yet. Not until we've had a chance to talk and set up proper protections. Wealth of this size attracts attention, and not all of it is good." "I understand," Blessing said quietly. "Good. Call me when you're ready to come to Lagos. We'll take care of everything for you." When she hung up, Blessing sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the documents spread before her. She thought about David. About how distant he had been lately. About the way he looked at her sometimes, like she was a burden instead of his wife. She thought about Sandra, her best friend, who had been there for her through everything horrible that had happened. Her mother's warning echoed in her mind again. Be careful who you trust. But surely David deserved to know. He was her husband. And Sandra, well, Sandra was like family in every way that mattered. Blessing decided to wait just a little longer. Just until she understood what she was really dealing with. The next 2 weeks passed like a strange dream. Blessing went through the motions of normal life. She cleaned out her mother's house, sorting through belongings and memories. She kept the jewelry box, the gospel CDs, and a quilt her grandmother had made many years ago. David barely noticed her grief. He came and went at odd hours, always with unclear explanations. Work thing. Meeting a client. Drinks with the guys. Sandra, on the other hand, checked in constantly. She brought jollof rice and chicken. She helped pack boxes at the house. She sat with Blessing during the long, painful silences. "You're going to get through this," Sandra said one evening as they packed kitchen items. "I know it doesn't feel like it now, but you will survive this pain." Blessing nodded, feeling grateful. "I don't know what I'd do without you, Sandra." Sandra smiled, but there was something strange in her eyes. Something Blessing couldn't quite understand. Something that appeared and disappeared too quickly. That night, Blessing came home to find David on the couch. But this time he wasn't watching television. He was sitting forward with his hands clasped together, looking serious. "We need to talk," he said in a heavy voice. Blessing's stomach dropped. Those 4 words never led anywhere good. She sat across from him, her whole body tense with fear. "What's going on, David?" He took a deep breath. For the first time in months, he looked uncomfortable and nervous. "Blessing, I don't know how to say this, so I'm just going to say it directly. I want a divorce." The room seemed to tilt and spin. Blessing stared at him, certain she had heard wrong. "What did you say?" "I'm not happy," he continued, his voice flat like he had practiced these words. "I haven't been happy for a while now. We've grown apart. You've been so focused on your mother and I need something different in my life." "My mother just died," Blessing said slowly, her voice shaking with emotion. 2 weeks ago, David. Just 2 weeks. I know the timing isn't great. Isn't great? She stood up, anger flaring hot and sudden inside her chest. "My mother just died. And you're telling me you want a divorce?" He stood too, becoming defensive. "I didn't plan for it to happen now, Blessing. But I can't keep pretending anymore. It's not fair to either of us." "Who is she?" Blessing asked coldly. His face went completely blank. "What are you talking about?" "There's someone else." "I'm not stupid, David. Who is she?" "There's no one else," he said, but his eyes looked away for just 1 second. That 1 second told Blessing everything she needed to know. Would David's betrayal be even worse than Blessing could imagine? "Get out," Blessing said, her voice cold as ice. "Blessing, listen. Get out of my house right now." David grabbed his jacket quickly. His movements were hurried and guilty. "I'll come back for my things later. My lawyer will be in touch with you." And just like that, he was gone. Blessing stood in the empty apartment, her breath coming in short, painful gasps. She wanted to scream, to throw something, to break down completely. But instead, she sat on the floor, pulled her knees to her chest, and let the tears come in silence. Her phone buzzed with a message. It was from Sandra. "Hey girl, you okay? Haven't heard from you today. Want me to come over?" Blessing stared at the message for a long time. Then she typed back with shaking fingers. David just asked for a divorce. The response came immediately. What? I'm coming over right now. Don't move. 20 minutes later, Sandra was at the door, pulling Blessing into a fierce hug. I'm so sorry, Blessing. I can't believe he would do this to you, especially now after everything. They sat on the couch and Blessing told her everything. Well, almost everything. She left out the part about the envelope. About the billions sitting in trusts with her name on them. Sandra listened, her face showing sympathy and anger. He's a coward and a wicked man. You deserve so much better than him. I don't even know what to do anymore, Blessing admitted, feeling lost. Everything in my life is falling apart. You're going to survive this, Sandra said firmly. You're going to get through it and you're going to come out stronger than ever. I promise you that. As the days passed, Blessing found a lawyer and filed a response to David's divorce petition. The legal proceedings moved faster than she expected. David wanted it done quickly, and Blessing didn't have the energy to fight him. She still hadn't told anyone about the money. Part of her wanted to throw it in David's face. To watch him realize what he was walking away from. But her mother's voice kept her silent. Don't tell anyone. Be careful who you trust. 3 weeks after David left, Blessing was sitting in a restaurant in GRA Port Harcourt. She was reviewing documents from her lawyer when she saw them. David and Sandra. They were at a corner table sitting very close together. David's hand was covering Sandra's hand on the table. Sandra laughed at something he said, her eyes bright and happy. Blessing's blood went cold. She felt frozen in her chair, unable to move or breathe. She watched as David leaned in and kissed Sandra. Not a friendly kiss between friends. Oral kiss. The kind that spoke of love, of closeness, of something that had been building for much longer than 2 weeks. Blessing's hands began to tremble. She stood up slowly, her legs feeling unsteady beneath her. She walked toward their table like she was in a dream. They didn't notice her until she was standing right there looking down at them. Sandra looked up and her face drained of all color. Blessing. How long? Blessing's voice was quiet but deadly calm. David shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Blessing, just listen to me. How long have you two been together? She repeated, her eyes locked on Sandra's guilty face. Sandra's mouth opened and closed like a fish. It just happened. After your mother died, we were both trying to be there for you and we connected. We didn't plan it. After my mother died? Blessing's voice rose with anger and pain. Or before she died? Silence filled the space between them. Other people in the restaurant were starting to stare. David cleared his throat. It doesn't matter now, Blessing. We're moving forward. Sandra and I, we're together now. We're in love. Blessing stared at Sandra. The woman she had called her best friend for 10 years. The woman who had held her while she cried. The woman who had helped her pack up her mother's house while secretly sleeping with her husband. You were supposed to be my best friend, Blessing whispered, her voice breaking. Sandra's eyes filled with tears. I am your friend. I never meant for this to happen, Blessing. But I love him and he loves me. We can't help how we feel. He's still married to me, Blessing said coldly. Not for long, David said with cruelty in his voice. The divorce papers will be final next week. Then we can finally be together properly. Blessing felt something inside her snap. But instead of breaking into pieces, it hardened into something cold and sharp like metal. She smiled at them both. A real smile that confused them. You're right, she said calmly. The papers will be final next week. And then you two can have each other completely. She turned and walked out of the restaurant with her head held high. She refused to let them see her fall apart. Outside, she leaned against the building, gasping for air like she had been underwater. Her phone buzzed with an email. It was from Mr. Richard Ashford, the lawyer in Lagos. Miss Okafor, we really need to schedule that meeting. There are time-sensitive matters regarding your mother's estate that require your immediate attention. Please call me at your earliest convenience. Blessing stared at the email. Time-sensitive matters. Billions of naira. A whole life her mother had hidden to protect her. And now, 2 people who had betrayed her in the worst possible way. 2 people who thought she was just a sad, poor widow with nothing. She pulled up Mr. Richard's number and dialed. He answered on the first ring. Miss Okafor, thank you for calling. I'm ready, Blessing said, her voice steady and strong. I want to come to Lagos. I want to know everything about my mother's estate. Excellent. I'll have first-class tickets waiting for you tomorrow. A car will pick you up at the airport. Thank you, Mr. Richard. One more thing, Miss Okafor. Once we finalize everything, your life is going to change dramatically. Are you prepared for that kind of change? Blessing thought about David and Sandra. About the way they looked at her in that restaurant. Like she was pathetic. Like she was nothing. Yes, she said quietly but firmly. I'm prepared for anything now. What would Blessing discover in Lagos that would change everything? The flight to Lagos was smooth but felt surreal. Blessing sat in first class for the first time in her life, sipping champagne she couldn't taste. She stared out the window at clouds that looked like cotton mountains. When the plane landed at Murtala Muhammad Airport, a black Mercedes was waiting. The driver held a sign with her name, opened the door respectfully, and drove her through Lagos traffic to Victoria Island. The offices of Ashford and Partners occupied the top 3 floors of a sleek glass tower. Blessing stepped out of the elevator into a world of marble floors, expensive artwork and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the lagoon. Mr. Richard Ashford met her in the reception area. He was tall, distinguished, in his 60s, with silver hair and kind eyes that reminded her of her mother. Miss Okafor, he said warmly, shaking her hand. Thank you for coming. Please follow me. He led her into a private conference room where 3 other lawyers waited, along with a financial advisor and an estate planner. For the next 4 hours they explained everything. The stocks and major corporations. The real estate across 12 Nigerian states. The offshore accounts. The properties in London, Dubai, and Cape Town that her mother had acquired through decades of strategic investments. Her mother hadn't just been wealthy. She had been a financial genius, building an empire from the shadows while living like she had nothing. Your mother was very clear, Mr. Richard explained. Everything is yours with no restrictions. The trusts activated upon her death. As of 3 weeks ago, you became one of the wealthiest individuals in Nigeria. Blessing sat back, overwhelmed. Why didn't she tell me? Because she wanted you to know who you were before you knew what you had, Mr. Richard said gently. She wanted you to build your own character first. And clearly she succeeded. By the meeting's end, Blessing had signed dozens of documents, set up new accounts, and hired a management team. She walked out a different woman entirely. That evening in her suite at the Wheatbaker Hotel, Blessing's phone buzzed. A text from David, "We need to finalize the settlement. My lawyer says you're not responding. Let's just get this over with." Blessing smiled coldly. She emailed her lawyer, "Proceed with the divorce as planned. I'm not contesting anything. He can have the apartment, the car, whatever he wants. I don't need any of it." She hit send and turned off her phone. Tomorrow she would return to Port Harcourt. Tomorrow she would start building the life her mother had prepared for her. 6 months passed like a dream. Blessing returned as a changed woman, though no one could see it. She moved into a modest flat, dressed the same, drove her old car, worked her graphic design job. To everyone she was just Blessing Okafor, the woman whose mother died and whose husband left her. An object of pity. But beneath the surface, everything had changed. Blessing spent evenings on video calls with Mr. Richard's team, learning her empire. She studied market reports, property portfolios, investment strategies. She watched from a distance as David and Sandra moved in together, posting happy photos online. It should have hurt, but it didn't. Because Blessing knew something they didn't. Revenge wasn't about emotion. It was about timing. The divorce finalized on a Tuesday morning. David got the apartment, his car, and half their joint savings, about 12,000 naira. He thought he'd won. That afternoon, Blessing called Mr. Richard. "I'm ready to make my first move. What do you have in mind?" "David works for Kempton Consulting in Port Harcourt. I want to know who owns it." Typing sounds. Privately held. Majority shareholder is a venture capital firm called Gateway Equity. "Can we buy it?" Mr. Richard's tone shifted, intrigued. "Gateway has been selling off portfolio companies. With negotiation, yes, it's possible. Do it quietly. I don't want my name anywhere." "Understood. What are you planning?" "I'm going to teach him what it means to underestimate someone." 3 weeks later, through shell companies and trusts, Blessing owned Kempton Consulting. David had no idea. She attended board meetings via video, face hidden, voice disguised. "I want a full performance review of all senior consultants. Metrics, client feedback, billable hours. I want to know who's contributing and who's coasting." The CEO nodded. "We'll have that ready within the week." The report came back. David's numbers were mediocre. Fewer billable hours than peers, mixed client reviews, more networking than working. Blessing didn't fire him. That would be too easy. Instead, she implemented a new policy. All senior consultants must pitch for projects. No more guaranteed clients. David suddenly found himself competing for every account. He wasn't good at it. Within 2 months, his commissions dropped 60%. He started working late, stressed, snapping at colleagues. Sandra posted less on social media. But Blessing wasn't done. Sandra worked as regional manager for Elite Suites, a boutique hotel chain. Blessing researched. They were struggling, hemorrhaging cash after pandemic overexpansion. The parent company wanted a buyer. Blessing called Mr. Richard. I want to buy Elite Suites. 2 months later, the deal closed. Blessing brought in a new CEO, Mrs. Amaka Nwosu, known for ruthless efficiency. I want a full audit, Blessing told her. Every manager, every location. I want to know who's performing. The audit revealed what Blessing expected. Sandra's location was underperforming. Poor reviews, high staff turnover, low revenue. Mrs. Amaka called Sandra in on a Friday afternoon. Miss Williams, we need to discuss your performance. Your location ranks 3rd from bottom. Guest satisfaction is down, revenue is flat, morale is low. Can you explain? Sandra's confident smile faltered. Well, we've had challenges, but I'm not interested in excuses. I'm interested in results. You're being placed on a 60-day performance improvement plan. Turn this location around or you'll be terminated. Sandra's face went pale. You can't do this. I just did. You'll receive details in writing Monday. Sandra left shaking, called David in her car. They're threatening to fire me. I don't understand. David, stressed from his own problems, sighed heavily. Babe, I can't deal with this now. I got my own issues. Just figure it out. The line went dead. Sandra stared at her phone, tears streaming. For the first time, she wondered if leaving Blessing had been a mistake. Meanwhile, Blessing was just getting started. She learned David had bought an expensive engagement ring on credit. He proposed, Sandra said yes. They were planning a spring wedding in Calabar, sending out save the dates. Blessing saw the announcement online. David and Sandra on a beach, laughing, looking blissful. She felt nothing. Well, almost nothing. Just cold satisfaction from holding all the cards while they didn't even know they were playing. She called Mr. Richard again. I want to start a scholarship fund. The Rose Okafor Scholarship for first-generation university students. Full ride, tuition, accommodation, books, everything. That's wonderful. How much? Start with 20 billion naira. We can adjust from there. Brief pause. 20 billion? Yes. And Mr. Richard, I want the announcement public. I want my name attached. Are you ready? Once your name is out there. I'm ready. The announcement came Wednesday morning. Major outlets picked it up immediately. Blessing Okafor, daughter of late Rose Okafor, establishes 20 billion Nigerian naira scholarship fund. Miss Okafor, recently identified as sole heir to the Ashford fortune, plans national expansion over 5 years. The story included Blessing's professional photo, poised, elegant, powerful. Within hours, her phone exploded. Reporters, old friends, distant relatives suddenly wanting to connect. 2 calls didn't come, David and Sandra. Blessing knew they'd seen it. Everyone had. She imagined them staring at headlines, realizing what they'd walked away from. She didn't call them. She simply moved forward. That evening, she attended a charity gala in Lagos, her first public appearance since the announcement. She wore a midnight blue gown, simple but elegant. People stared. Whispers rippled. But Blessing moved through it all with grace. Halfway through, she saw them, David and Sandra, by the bar. They'd been invited weeks ago when they were just another networking couple. They saw her simultaneously. Color drained from both faces. Blessing smiled and walked over. David, Sandra. What a surprise. David couldn't speak. Sandra's eyes darted around, seeking escape. Congratulations on your engagement, Blessing said pleasantly. Spring wedding in Calabar, right? Sandra nodded weakly. Blessing, I hope you have a wonderful time. You deserve each other. The double meaning hung clear. Marcus finally spoke. Blessing, I didn't know about your mother, the money? Of course you didn't. That was the point. If I had known, you would have. What? Stayed? Pretended to love me for money instead of leaving me for my best friend. No answer. Blessing turned to Sandra. How's work? Sandra's face crumpled. Blessing, please. I'm sorry. So sorry. But you did hurt me. Both did. And you know what I learned? Hurt people don't always break. Sometimes they build. Sometimes they become something their betrayers can't imagine. She stepped back. Enjoy your evening. I certainly will. She walked away, leaving them frozen. Next morning Sandra was fired. The improvement plan had been a formality. David lost his biggest client that week. No explanation. Within a month he was laid off in restructuring. Their engagement photo disappeared from social media. The wedding was postponed, then cancelled. Blessing heard it all through the grapevine. She didn't interfere further. She'd set things in motion. Gravity did the rest. 6 months after the gala, Blessing stood in her new penthouse overlooking Lagos. She'd finally moved into something reflecting her reality. Her phone rang. "Mr. Richard. Just checking in. How are you?" "I'm good," Blessing said, meaning it. "Really good. Your mother would be proud. She wanted you strong, smart, unbreakable. That's exactly who you've become." After hanging up, Blessing sat at her desk. Work awaited, the scholarship fund, her companies, properties, investments, a future to build. She thought about David and Sandra sometimes, but not often. They'd made choices, revealed themselves, and freed her to become who she was meant to be. The woman her mother raised. The woman who could survive anything. Her mother's framed letter sat on her desk, final lines visible. "When the storm comes, you stand. You are stronger than you know." Blessing had stood. And was still standing. She texted Mr. Richard, "Let's expand the scholarship. Double the endowment. I want to help more students who understand building from nothing." Response came quickly, "Consider it done." Blessing looked out at Lagos again. Somewhere, David and Sandra were learning about betrayal and consequences. But Blessing wasn't thinking about them. She was thinking about tomorrow, students whose lives would change, businesses she'd build, impact she'd make, the woman she'd continue becoming. Her mother had given more than money. She'd given wisdom, strength, purpose. And Blessing wouldn't waste any of it. The sun set over the skyline in gold and amber. Blessing sat with cooling tea beside her and smiled. Not because she'd won, but because she'd survived. And sometimes that's the greatest victory of all. We've come to the end of today's story. I hope it touched your heart. Thanks for watching and staying with us till the end. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more inspiring stories. See you in the next one. And tell us in the comments, where are you watching from?